Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is the June 21st, 2022 regular meeting of the Town Council. Welcome. Happy to see you all here this evening. And happy first day of summer, I think, or at least almost. We're going to start, as we generally do, with reading by our Poet Laureate, Fred Joyner. Welcome, Fred.
How's everybody doing?
I'm good.
Thank you, Fred.
Beautiful, beautiful past couple of days. I particularly enjoyed our Juneteenth celebration. So I've been kind of delving into, summertime puts me in a kind of meditative mood, and I shared this book with you before, but it's a really big book, and it's a beautiful, beautiful book. It's called The Illuminated Space. It's a personal theory of contemplative practice of media art. And the woman, or the person who has written this book is a filmmaker, a media artist, but there's so many good meditations in this book. Like the first few, I had trouble figuring out what I was going to read tonight. There was looking, watching, seeing, hearing, listening. And I settled on one called Stillness today because I think this is your last meeting before the summertime, and I think the time you're heading into is a time of stillness. But I like their turn on this. So Stillness by Marilyn Freeman. The first step is stopping, says Thich Nhat Hanh in How to Relax. We run throughout our whole life. Stopping means stopping running. Stopping makes me very anxious. Just the thought of trying to get still can put me into hyperdrive. At first, but stillness is the antidote to anxiety, and a gateway into imagination. It's a paradox. I imagine the everyday busyness of life progressing horizontally at varying speeds, from slow motion to super fast. I think of stillness as vertical. Stillness is about going deeper. It is about the sky, blue or gray or dark, spacious. We begin running a long time ago, says Thich Nhat Hanh. We continue to run even in our sleep. I have his little book on my bedside table. More of each page is empty than filled with words. A lot happens to me before I can dive into the spaciousness of stillness, stopping. I resist, in art and in life. Resistance may be my first reaction to an unexpected opening of a film or a video. Wait, what? What happened here? Resistance is followed by agitation, annoyance. Annoyance can be a wake-up call. Resistance can be a call to consciousness. So that's called Stillness from The Illuminated Space. And the last thing I want to share with you, something of a gift to think about for the summer as you're trying to root into your practice of stillness, is this book called Haiku. It's a book of haiku by Richard Wright. You may know him by some of his other pieces. He was a social realist writer, wrote Native Son, The Outsider, Black Boy, Black Power, all of this. But the thing that I really dig about this is that he was writing this while he was in exile. And he was writing it kind of almost as he was dying. And so these become really serious meditations about life and about the things that matter in life. And they're haiku. They're really short, little pieces. And there's about 900 of them in here. So it's something that non-threatening, that you can read every day. And I think it gives a little contrast to somebody who was seen as such a polemical artist who was trying to find a sense of peace and calm and reassert his humanity as he was living in exile. So thank you for indulging me today. I appreciate it. Have a good summer.
And I miss you over the summer, Fred. Thank you so much. And to move on to a proclamation that I have to share this evening. And Anita Jones-McNair, would you mind joining me up front, along with anyone else you've brought with you today? It's a proclamation I'm going to share for Recreation and Parks Month, which is in July. But since this is our final meeting of the season, I wanted to make sure to get this on the books and have an opportunity for us to appreciate Anita and the employees in her department. So Anita, thanks for being here today. Whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and the National Park and Recreation Association designated the theme of this year's celebration as We Rise Up for Parks and Recreation. There's a hashtag, Rise Up for Parks. Rise Up July, there's a hashtag. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities because they help establish and maintain good quality of life, they contribute to the health of residents, and they support the economic and environmental well-being of the community and the region. And whereas parks and recreation programs promote healthy, active communities and aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation for residents and with disabilities, and improve the physical and emotional health of all residents. And whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, produce habitat for wildlife, add to the ecological beauty of the community, and provide spaces for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the town of Carrboro strives to maintain safe and healthy park amenities for all ages, and during the COVID-19 pandemic, the town has adapted and continued to safely offer programming, including youth and adult classes, youth and adult athletic leagues, camps, workshops, clinics, and signature events such as Carrboro Day, the Freight Train Blues Concert Series, the July 4th celebration, the Carrboro Music Festival, the West End Poetry Festival, the Halloween Carnival, and the Carrboro Film Festival. And whereas the town's Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Resources Department is committed to advancing racial equity and is evaluating its programs, facilities, and services using the racial equity assessment lens within the One Orange Racial Equity Framework. And whereas the dedicated employees of the Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Resources Department, and I should have introduced Anita as the head of that department, have an average of 17 years in providing excellent programs and amenities to our community. Now, therefore, I, Damon Siles, Mayor of the town of Carrboro, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim July 2022 to be Recreation and Parks Month in Carrboro. I encourage all residents to enjoy our parks and natural areas, to take advantage of classes, camps, programs, and events provided by the Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Resources Department, and to share appreciation and thanks with the department's many dedicated employees and volunteers. This is the 21st day of June, 2022. Share some words?
Just a few words. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council, for your recognition. And I would like to also thank you and the manager for your guidance and support in our department. And a special thanks to staff because, they've really dedicated themselves in providing life-sustaining and life-changing opportunities. So I certainly want to thank them for all their work. And, we just wrapped up Freight Train Blues Series, as the mayor mentioned. Very excited that we were able to get through that this year in person. And we really look forward to a lot of other activities, 4th of July, camps, and a lot of things that are coming up. So if you'd like to keep abreast of what's going on, visit us at carbororec.org. So thank you again.
Thanks, Anita, and really do supervise some incredible employees and a ton of volunteers. I don't think people realize just how many volunteers and part-time employees that Anita's department also supervises, and they really make all of these programs and activities happen. So thank you. All right. Next up is announcement of upcoming meetings. Mary?
There's only one upcoming meeting. It's the Racial Equity Commission meeting on June 22nd at 6 p.m., and that's virtual.
Thanks, y'all. I'll just mention that the upcoming meeting of the Chapel Hill Transit Partners Committee has been canceled for this coming month. So Randy and I and Anne Marie have that date off. Yes, Barbara?
Thank you, Mayor. The Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness, the monthly meeting got rescheduled because of Juneteenth on Monday the 20th. It's usually the third Monday. So we rescheduled it to June 30th at 6 o'clock.
Great.
It's still meeting virtually.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sammy and then Randy?
The Stormwater Advisory Commission had a reschedule for June 29th at 6:30 next Wednesday.
Thanks, Sammy. Randy?
Yeah, I just want to take a moment to express my thanks to Chapel Hill Transit for the dedication event for Howard and Lillian Lee. It took place yesterday. It was a spectacular community event honoring two icons in our communities of Chapel Hill and Carrboro. We know that Howard Lee was mayor in Chapel Hill, but I just want to uplift Lillian, who was a colleague of mine in the Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools, most beloved, most nurturing, supporting students and colleagues and UNC athletes. And it was just an incredible moment yesterday to listen to Howard and Lillian speak and know that they are being honored, and the Chapel Hill Transit, the building is being dedicated in their name, and they are here to be appreciated. So if you get an opportunity to take a look at some of the pictures that I think Chapel Hill Transit has posted, please do. These are people who you want to know, and community is so appreciative of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. It was a great event, and Senator Lee and Mrs. Lee have really changed this entire community for the better. Barbara?
Thank you, Mayor. And that was a great picture of you, Councilmember Haven O'Donnell, hugging Lillian Lee. I was just like, oh, wow. And I also want to take an opportunity to lift up our very own Kendall Lytle, who recognized this week as WCHL Hometown Hero. I think we all know who she is. She was just here last week. And Lori Clark's coming in. She gave great comment about her and her leadership in the Chapel Hill Carrboro NAACP Youth Council. As she heads off to Elon in the fall. She will be missed, but just wanted to lift her up. Thanks.
Thank you, Barbara. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Mary. Mary?
I wanted to remind somebody to mention the rodeo.
Thank you so much. Yes, I can't
thought
believe
you guys
I've forgotten that. Of all people, should have been mentioning that. And you will see we have some little gifts for us from the staff, which is very kind. Thank you. This is Pride Month. As you all know, this is Pride Month, and we have been partnering with the town of Chapel Hill over this month to do a series of events to celebrate Pride Month. We kicked it off at the beginning of the month with an event and a parade down Franklin Street hosted by the town of Chapel Hill. We're rounding out the month this coming Friday in Carrboro on the town commons just outside with a dance party / food truck rodeo. You can come from 5 to 8 and dance and eat food. And if you want to come out a little early, you can actually come out to the Century Center, and we're going to be marching the Rainbow Ram down Weaver Street toward the town commons in celebration, just like we did last year. So it'll be a lot of fun. I know oddly enough, both Eleazar and I will be missing from the event this year, unfortunately. However, Susan, I know, will be filling in as Mayor Pro Tem. I'm very grateful for that. And we'll also have Councilmember Karen Stegman from Chapel Hill joining to represent the town of Chapel Hill. Randy.
Yeah, I just want to add there will be 15 of the most wonderful vegan and vegetarian food trucks at the event. And I believe there are at least a dozen tablers. So come on out. There are activities for children, and there's just a wonderful cross-pollination of community folks participating. And
I
I'll be missing it too, because I'll be up at Chicago Pride.
I'll just finally say thanks, as Randy did, to the staff who have participated with the staff in Chapel Hill for making all of these events happen, including this Friday's event. And also want to thank Randy Haven O'Donnell for her part in helping to round up food trucks and other vendors for the event. So thank you, Randy.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Now, I hear, now, Councilmember Haven O'Donnell, now you're talking about vegan. I can eat vegan. Where's beef? Where's chicken?
It may be, I don't know, but I know
You'll have to come find out,
you'll
Barbara.
have to
I'll
come
be
find
there.
out.
I'll be there. I was just asking. I can teeter in between the two.
Yeah.
But thank you, Randy.
Yeah,
For,
Mike's was there for Juneteenth, and
Was.
Mike's and Stairway will be there, and so will the Bull Bakery. It's really going to be
It'll be a lot of
spectacular.
fun. It was a lot of fun last year, and I think
I'm
it'll be
excited.
another one,
I'll be
another
here.
good time this year. All right, so those are upcoming meetings and events. Next up, we have our public comment period. I have a couple folks signed up, and so I'll just go in order and start with Shelley Welch. Shelley, welcome. And as you know, Shelley, we generally ask folks to keep within about 3 minutes, so I'll have a timer running and I'll give you vague hand signals when it's time. Do you want me to email it to you, Mary? Is that helpful, or is this not on the network?
Well, it disappeared. I had it pulled up before. Okay.
My name is Shelley Welch. I own a forest school on Damascus Church Road in a part of Chapel Hill that is under the jurisdiction of the town of Carrboro because it's a watershed area, which means that the regulations on that watershed area should be stricter so that the drinking water of Carrboro is protected. I am next door to Merritt's Gravel Pit, and for the last 4 years, I have been coming to the town council meetings to try to encourage the town of Carrboro to enforce their regulations on the Merritt's Gravel Pit. And I have not been terribly successful at that. The Merritt's Gravel Pit has never been in compliance since the day that I put an offer on the property in 2017. A year ago, they were fined $20,000 from NCDEQ for their failure to comply. The town of Carrboro has taken no definitive action against Merritt's Gravel Pit. They filed a lawsuit, and then you subsequently dismissed the lawsuit and made a settlement and allowed the Merritt's Gravel Pit to leave a stream buffer destroyed and did not require them to repair it as your LUO requires you to require them. So currently, Merritt's Gravel Pit has requested and received from NCDEQ a new permit modification, taking my land, our easement, into the gravel pit. However, your land use ordinance, 800 pages of it, which is fairly useless as you don't enforce it, said that a non-conforming situation, except as specifically provided in this section, and I'm reading from section 15-124A, no person may engage in any activity that causes an increase in the extent of nonconformity of a nonconforming situation. Extent is defined in Webster's as, quote, the area covered by something, or, quote, the degree to which something has spread. Therefore, extending the Merritt's gravel pit from the property line to the easement line on my property, which Merritt's gravel pit does not own, your own attorney should be explaining to you that easement does not ever imply ownership. It implies use, and it does not imply moving a mine. We're already dealing with NCDEQ in a lawsuit with them, but this is your bed right here, and you have a responsibility to enforce this. Now I'm reading 15-128. A non-conforming use of open land may not be extended to cover more land than was occupied by that use when it became non-conforming. A gravel mine, as you probably know, is not it's non-conforming. It makes an exception for quarries, and it may be expanded to the boundaries of the lot where the use was established at the time it became non-conforming. A boundary is a separating or dividing line between two adjoining properties. That's called a property line, folks.
Shelley, just so you know, you're at the 3 minutes. So
the non-conforming use, when expanded, does not generate noise that tends to have an annoying or disruptive effect upon uses located on adjacent lots. This permit, the air quality permit that goes along with this NCDEQ permit, allows the Merritt gravel pit to do rock crushing. And the town of Carrboro took 34 days to respond to my email, Marty, to say, we don't understand your email. 34 days. I still don't have an answer. And my guess is that I don't have an answer because, once again, the town of Carrboro does not want to enforce its ordinance against a bully. I've been assaulted by every single Merritt. You all know that.
thank you, Shelley.
You need to enforce the ordinances. I'm going to be coming here every Tuesday and saying the same thing until you do it.
Thank you, Shelley. So, Mr. Manager, we've heard some information tonight about the extent of the gravel pit being expanded, I guess, into the easement, and Shelley needs a response about that. Is that your understanding?
Yes, that's correct. We did reach out for clarification, and we now have that, and staff is working on responding.
Okay. You'll be following up directly with Shelley.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Barbara?
Barbara?
I'm sorry, Mayor. Can I ask a question? So, of course, we know that Ms. Welch has been coming. This is the first time in a long time. Are we on a new issue? Or, because there's been issues, so I was just wondering if this is new or continuing, because I haven't heard from her in a while.
Sounds like we might maybe need an update from the manager when he gets back to Ms. Welch about this particular question, and maybe that would be an opportunity just to give us an update of where things stand on the various complaints that are at play here, because there have been several issues that I know y'all have been dealing with.
Okay.
Is that okay, Barbara?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just been a minute since we've heard from her, and I know there's...
Yeah, and I don't know the status of any of that stuff either, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Manager. All right, also signed up today is Makita Mott. I don't know that she's in the room. She may be running a little late. I think Randy spoke to her earlier, so we may see her a little bit later. All right. Mr. Manager, I think we're ready for the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The first item on the consent agenda is the approval of minutes from the March 22nd, 2022 meeting. The second item is a request to adopt a resolution to award a service sidearm to retiring police officer. Police Captain Anthony Westbrook II will retire from the town of Carrboro Police Department on July 1st, 2022, after 20 years of service with the town and 30 years of total law enforcement service. The police department would like to award Captain Westbrook his service sidearm to recognize his dedication to duty and his service to the town of Carrboro. The town council requests to adopt by resolution town staff's recommendation to award the sidearm to Captain Anthony Westbrook II. The next item is police department monthly reports. The purpose of this item is to provide a brief overview of service calls for the month of May. The next item is the Police Department Quarterly Equity Report. The purpose of this agenda item is to provide the Town Council a brief overview of the Quarterly Equity Report for the first quarter of 2022. The next item is the Fire Department Monthly Report. The purpose of this item is to provide the Town Council a monthly overview of calls for service. The next item is the Economic Development Monthly Report. The purpose of this item is to provide a regular monthly activities and status report. The next item is the Stormwater Utility Monthly Report. The purpose of this agenda item is to provide the monthly update regarding stormwater utility projects and initiatives. The next item is consideration of human services funding for FY23. The purpose of this agenda item is for the Carrboro Town Council to consider human services funding recommendations for FY23. The next item is a permit extension request for previously issued conditional use permit, now special use permit A, for mixed-use building at 603 Jones Ferry Road. The purpose of this agenda item is for the Town Council to consider approving a request for an extension of the date when a conditional use permit would otherwise expire for a mixed-use building at 603 Jones Ferry Road. Town staff recommends approval of the request. The next item is the revised Town Council committee assignment. The purpose of this item is to allow the Town Council to consider revision of committee assignments for 2022. The next item is a resolution canceling the June 28th, 2022 Town Council meeting. The purpose of this item is to cancel the June 28th meeting. The next item is authorization for the town manager to accept payment for damages to Fire Station 2 and sign the release for property damage only. The next item is designation of fund balance for FY22 budget items not yet spent or encumbered. The Town Council requests to designate fund balance in the general fund to carry over to next year for certain budget items where funds have not been spent or encumbered. And that's all the items on the consent agenda.
That's it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. I do know that we do, as you all know, we need to pull item number 8 on the Human Services funding recommendations from our Human Services Advisory Commission on the advice of our attorney, of course, according to new state law. Pulling this item will allow council members who are directors, officers, or governing board members of any of the listed nonprofits and those recommendations to recuse themselves from discussing or voting on that matter. So we'll pull that item. Any other items we need to pull? Barbara?
I don't want to pull anything. I just want a motion 1 through 7 and 9 through 13, unless somebody has another item.
I'll ask for a second, and then I'll move on to the next.
Oh, is Randy, you the second?
I'm going to wait for the second first.
okay.
I'll second, but I also have a question about number 7.
Okay.
All right, so you're pulling number 7, Randy?
Yeah.
Are there any others that we need to pull besides 7 and 8? All right, there's a motion by Barbara, second by Randy to approve items 1 through 7 and 9 through 13. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The matter passes unanimously. Actually, I shouldn't have said number 7. That's 1 through 6 and 9 through 13. We're going to talk about number 7 right now with Randy.
Yeah. I had a quick question, and I don't know whether Trish or Randy Dodd, I wanted to ask about where we are now in terms of the 116 Carroll Street acquisition. What's the most updated information, the stormwater application for to FEMA?
Is that something y'all feel prepared to answer tonight? Randy, why don't you come on up here to the front, please? Thank you.
So based on where things were, I guess it was January, it's still.
We've checked with the Department of Public Safety staff, and they say it's still in the review process, but it's stuck at FEMA office in Atlanta.
Is there a timeline for which there's no deadline? So this is like open-ended?
Well, at some point, the Hurricane Florence grant funding will expire, and that's still out a year or two or so. So
If you would, when we get back in September, just update us if there's any other word. I appreciate that.
Or if anything comes in before then, we'll be sure and share it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Trish. Randy, will you move that item, please?
I will. So I'd like to move item number 7, which is Stormwater Utility Monthly Report.
A second?
I'll second.
By Susan. Moved by Randy, seconded by Susan, that we approve item number 7. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. The matter passes unanimously. Item number 8 is Human Services Advisory Commission recommendations for our annual allocation of human services funding. I believe we have at least a couple of council members who need to recuse themselves from this item. Eleazar?
I'm one of the ones that needs to recuse.
Okay. And Susan?
And I need to recuse myself as well.
And anyone else?
I just want to make a clarification that I'm not on the El Centro board. I'm on the cell, which is not connected, so I can vote.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, so Councilmember Posada and Councilmember Romaine have recused themselves from discussing or voting on this matter. Is there a motion to approve this item?
Yes.
By Barbara, second by Danny. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The matter passes unanimously with 5 members voting yes and 2 having recused themselves. All right, great. First time using that new state law. Went pretty well. Yeah. Thanks, Brady and the clerk for getting us set up for that, keeping us on the straight and narrow there. Thank you. All right, Mr. Manager, next item, please.
The next item is a public hearing. To request to hold a quasi-judicial hearing and consider issuing a reasonable accommodation request for 714 West Main Street. The purpose of the item is for the town council to hold a quasi-judicial hearing and consider issuing a reasonable accommodation request. And Marty Rupp, our
Thanks,
zoning
Richard.
administrator, will introduce the item.
And as the manager, and for those of you who are here in the audience and listening at home, as the manager mentioned, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, which means that anyone presenting evidence on the matter will have to be sworn by the clerk, including Marty, our staff person. And it also means that according to the statute, that the decision that we make on this item as a council has to be based, I'm quoting here, on competent material and substantial evidence in the record, which will be presented tonight. So we're putting on our judge's robes for this item now, and take it away, Marty.
Thank you.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the facts you're about to give are the truth to the best of your knowledge.
I do. Good evening, everyone. I have a very brief presentation, and then the applicant and property owner are also here, should you have questions for them or wish to discuss further. 714 West Main Street, reasonable accommodation request under 15-97 in the land use ordinance. I did include that section as an attachment to the agenda item because this is kind of new for all of us. This is the first official one, I think. We had one that was a request a while back, but I think this is the first one that's actually made it to council. So it involves a boundary line regulatory setback of 12, that otherwise would be 12 feet from the property line to any substantial structure. And again, I mentioned 1597 is the governing language. Shown on the exhibit, and I'm going to share with you a slightly updated exhibit in a moment here. The majority of the encroachment will be 4 feet along that property line, 4 feet into the 12-foot setback. So it'll still be 8 feet away from the property line, with the westernmost 5 feet encroaching 5 feet in order to accommodate an ADA compliant landing pad. Considerations listed by the applicant for needing to construct in this location include proximity to where Ms. Crawford enters and exits her home to get in vehicles to go away from her property, and then when she comes home, this is where she conveniently gets out and makes her way into the home. And also the environment back there is amenable to kind of enjoying the outdoor environment, and the applicant and/or Ms. Crawford are here again if you wish to discuss that further. Now I did include a site plan exhibit in your agenda item. The only difference, if I can use the cursor here, and Mr. O'Dwyer can correct me if I don't get this right, but it's really just this corner needed to expand out an additional 1 foot, again, for ADA compliance reasons. So that westernmost 5 feet would go 5 feet into the setback instead of 4 feet. Otherwise, that exhibit is as presented in your agenda item. Some pictures of the home that Mr. O'Dwyer sent over, just in case they help with any discussion that may take place. We took the liberty of, Nick Herman, town attorney, took the liberty, and I believe he discussed it with you, Brady, of preparing a draft decision ahead of time tonight because of the pending summer break. So I have that here before you, and I left a paper copy at your places tonight.
Thank you, Marty.
You're welcome. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, or again, Mr. O'Dwyer and Ms. Crawford are here as well.
Thanks. So council members, the page at our places here is the findings of fact document that staff and the attorney has drafted for us. Should we decide to make a decision on this tonight, which I think we probably will. Let me first say, Mr. O'Dwyer and Ms. Crawford, I'm really glad that you could both be with us this evening. Thank you for taking the time out of your evening to join us here at Town Hall. Are there any questions for Marty on this application by council members or any other witnesses wanting to enter evidence into the record? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing if there are no questions, and I'll entertain a motion on this request. Randy?
Yeah, I'd like to move this and hopefully get this built as soon as possible.
Susan?
Just one question, if my time hasn't expired for questions.
You second the motion first?
I can second the motion. And a quick question. This is definitely a technicality, and Marty,
Yes.
This idea of the power of attorney had expired. I certainly don't want to get in the way of approving this evening, but I just wanted to make sure everything was good to go.
Thank you for that. I meant to address that in my comments. Nick Herman has given his opinion that it does not make a difference one way or the other. That was the way the application was presented. And I did speak to Mr. O'Dwyer by phone today, and he assured me that Ms. Crawford does give him permission, and that's really all we need.
I definitely do.
Yes.
Takes care of problems for me.
That's good to hear. Thanks for confirming that, Ms. Crawford. And thank you for the clarifying question, Susan. All right, it's been moved by Randy, seconded by Susan, that we approve this request, which will be reduced to writing as it has been here before us and signed by the mayor upon approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Matter passes unanimously. Best of luck with your new extension on the sidewalk. Yes, Sammy.
Just a quick comment. We recently approved of an exception or a change to our land use ordinance to allow for a walkway with steps. And I think that this is the kind of thing that we could expand on that kind of change. So I would like to make a motion to ask staff to look at this and follow through with a change in our land use ordinance like we recently did for those steps to accommodate this kind of medical need, really.
So motion is for staff to bring back something for council to consider in incorporating this kind of situation into that earlier change around steps from residences. You know what what he's referring to,
I do.
Marty?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good idea.
Thank you, Mr. O'Dwyer. Mr. Manager, you understand the request?
Yes, I do.
Is there a second of Sammy's motion? By Danny, sorry, it was a tie. Danny, moved by Sammy, seconded by Danny, that we ask for staff to bring back to council some information about updating the land use ordinance to accommodate situations like this in the matter that we recently approved as a council. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. The matter passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. So Mary, at some point you'll have me sign this document or wherever the official version of it is, and just, you know where to find me. All right, we're on to other matters, Mr. Manager.
The first item under other matters is the Racial Equity Commission Annual Synopsis. The purpose of this agenda item is for the Town Council to accept the Racial Equity Commission's annual synopsis and consider approving a change in the commission makeup.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey,
Buenas
Donald.
noches.
Good to see you in person, Donald.
All right. All right. My name is Donald Hawkins. I go by Landon Hawkins. I'm the chairman of the Racial Equity Commission. And today thank you for having me here today. And I would like to present what we've been doing for the past year. All right. So a summary. The commission was established and started meetings last year. The need to work on a clear direction is the meeting of our focal point. The discussions about the work of the commission are uncharted territory, so we're trying to figure out what are we actually trying to do in the community and what problems we need to start looking at. Unfortunately, people of color are suffering, and the commission should help mitigate harm, be a catalyst in foregoing a new direction, vision, and accountable actions. All right. So this is our charge that was given to us. The charge of the Racial Equity Commission is to advise and work on the town with the town council, racial and equity officers, and the town staff to educate, provide leadership, and facilitate ongoing equitable engagement within the immediate and greater Carrboro community towards the goal of creating a community of inclusiveness in which the political, economic, social, and cultural institutions are no longer predicated and influenced by race. So that's what our charge was given to us, and that's what we tried to maintain as well in our meetings. So diving a little deeper, we participated in the events advocating racial equity in the role of government training. So we were all trained as members. So we've been listened to a lot of presentations this year. The Carrboro Connects, Chapel Hill Transit, IFC, the Carrboro County Partnership to End Homelessness, Transportation Management Grant Applications, ideas promoting travel choices. During that time, we also participated in Carrboro Day. We had a stand, and we talked with residents and shared information and conducted a brief survey. So the plan for this upcoming year, we have some proposed items. We're asking that the council add the blue language to our commission members to add the BIPOC business owner, as well as the in addition to the farmers market board member. So we also are emphasizing the importance of acquiring property to support affordable housing, because housing is a big issue right now on our board. And so we're trying to figure out what we can do with the homelessness. We revisit the housing definition versus affordable versus low income, fill vacant seats as well, what I mentioned earlier. We're going to review and discuss completed racial equity assessment lens, evaluating policies, practices, and services. We want to assist with voter registration, and we're also willing to work with Chapel Hill. We recognize that they don't have a racial equity board as well, but we're trying to work with things across the line as well. And we partner with the IFC to work on stuff more in the community. So from Carrboro Day, we've had two survey questions. One of the questions were, what can the town do to help racial equity in the community? A lot of the feedback we got was towards housing as well. We wanted to look at, again, what is affordable versus low income. We wanted to increase the outreach. These are all with the responses from the people of Carrboro, we'll say. So we want to increase the outreach in communities and neighborhoods, listen to people who are affected by inequality, give historical oppressed people a platform and governmental power. We wanted to promote the commission understanding of the town history and how they impact inequality today. And hold open meetings and forum that we're trying to do now is have listening sessions as well. So the second question we had from the feedback from Carrboro Day, how are you willing to help our town advance racial equity? A lot of people wanted to speak out as an ally in affordable housing. Again, that was one of the biggest feedbacks we got against discriminatory lending practices, financial volunteer. A lot of things were also mental health was mentioned. how can they serve in the committee or create initiatives, and also by listening or signing petitions, fundraise, attending events, and a lot of people were willing to help and get this thing off the ground. See if we could make changes in Carrboro. All right, and my presentation. I don't have 3 minutes, so.
You definitely get more than 3 minutes, Donald. Thank you so much. It's really good to see you in person here.
Sir, yes, sir. So any questions?
I just want to first appreciate you for your leadership and chairing the commission. I know it's been, anytime there's a new advisory board or commission, it's a challenge to sort of get it off the ground and get your folks organized and get people on the commission really focused on the agenda, right?
We had a couple setbacks the first couple months, but we started getting the ball rolling after.
That's how it goes. Yeah. So I'm just really grateful for your leadership and stepping into that role. It's been really important, I know, and I've heard from folks who have been, in those meetings, and of course our liaisons as well about the importance of your leadership. So thank you.
Thank you.
Council members, are there questions for Donald? I have Randy, and then Barbara, and then Susan.
Yeah, well, first, I just want to come behind Damon and say, being a liaison to the commission, I really applaud all the commission members for the pioneering work that you're all doing. It's not easy, and it's not easy when you don't have the framework that says this is what the next step is. You're determining that, and it's coming along. It's wonderful. I wanted just to clarify that the reason why the farmers market and the request has come to add an or for a BIPOC business owner comes from the fact that in point of fact, for Carrboro and all of the BIPOC initiatives that have been made, and I think John's here in the BIPOC roundtable, that's a way of being more inclusive in the kind of conversation that's happening across other advisory boards.
Right.
That's why the addition of the BIPOC business owner as part of the membership is important. And I don't know whether that's a separate.
That's part of this item. Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to move that resolution to change that membership so that we could get either or.
Thanks, Randy. Is there a second? Barbara? So it's been moved by Randy and seconded by Barbara that we accept this report from Donald and make the requested change to the membership. So we'll leave some more time here for further discussion. Barbara, then Susan, then Eleazar.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you.
Don't start laughing now. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins, for your leadership as chair. This truly is uncharted territory, and we've had some really difficult conversations, in this first year or so. But certainly your leadership is truly making all the difference as you steer this very big ship of race and equity. And so I wanted to lift up and appreciate you because it took a lot to get there, where we had leadership for this very important commission. And I just wanted to lift you up, let you know how much we appreciate you and that you are definitely supported in this important role with the Race Equity Commission. So thank you.
Thank you, Council Member.
Thank you, Barbara. Susan, you're next, and then Eleazar.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I want to lift you up too, Mr. Hawkins. Thank you for serving on this commission at this really important time. And as others have mentioned, your leadership is just really, really appreciated.
Thank you.
I do have a few questions. And so first is, just so I'm clear on the farmer's market, it's the farmer's market board or BIPOC business owner. Was there any consideration to the farmer's market and a BIPOC?
Yes, it is. So the original seat is the farmer's market member, but we have hadn't any representation for a while on the board, so we wanted to add the option of a BIPOC business.
I got you. Okay. So it doesn't mean that the farmer's market is sort of being kicked off to have a BIPOC.
It's farmer's market or BIPOC.
I got you. Okay.
Business members.
Got you. That helps a lot. And then I also wanted to ask, I did want to mention under the deep dive section, I really
Right.
appreciate all of the efforts the commission has been making to gather a lot of information. That's very time consuming, and
Right.
I did notice that, and I appreciate it. A few questions, just a couple questions here. It mentions that there's 3 vacant commission seats.
Right.
And, but then it mentioned under the Carrboro Day comments that there were some community members saying that they would be happy to step up. It
Right, so-
sounded like they were happy to be on the commission, and
Right.
I didn't know if there had been follow-up with some of these folks,
So-
or,
Let me go back to this. So they have to follow the guidelines for living in Carrboro, I believe, or being a resident, or along the lines of representation on one of these boards. So some of the people that we got the surveys from, we haven't reached back out yet because we're not sure if they are a member, actually live in Carrboro for the certain amount of time that we need to be represented, or that they are representation on one of these boards. So we're just trying to figure that out. We haven't had a meeting yet. Our meeting's tomorrow, so we just trying to figure out how we can add more members that way as well. That makes sense. Sorry.
it does.
Okay, yeah. So
does.
if they're not a actual resident of Carrboro, was it 5? I believe 5 years. 10 years or 30 years, then they can't join or apply to the board.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that may be hard in terms of
Right,
those
yes,
who
ma'am,
have
yes, ma'am.
responded in
So,
terms of
yeah.
meeting that criteria.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
But if they are, we have an open application for those, and we haven't accepted any applications yet at this moment.
Mm-hmm. And are the only voting members the residents of color? Is everybody else on the commission non-voting? In other words, the representatives from the different advisory boards, the race and equity officer, the council members, are they all non-voting?
Don't vote.
Council members don't vote.
We don't vote.
Right.
But I mean,
The advisory board members do vote.
Advisory.
Right.
representatives to the different advisory boards,
Right,
those
yes,
are
ma'am.
all
Yes,
voting
ma'am.
members on
Yes,
this.
ma'am.
Okay, great. And the only other thing I wanted to mention was, it's just to let you know about a couple of things that are in our budget that we're going to be approving later this evening, because that came up on some of the comments from the Carrboro Day survey. But one is wanting to have compensation for those who do serve on advisory boards. And in our budget that we'll be voting on, there will be funding for stipends,
Okay.
which we're really excited about. And we'll work out the criteria on that, but it will be a way of respecting advisory board's time, and also hoping to provide an allowance for daycare and transportation, what have you. So, and the other thing I did want to mention was there will be, in terms of the reparations, I know that in our budget we also will be funding a disparity study where we can sort of look at, I assume it's going to be looking at how our grants and loans and contracts and how those are provided by the town, to look to see if there's some racial disparities that we can work to address. So that study may help to inform some of your discussions around the reparations.
Thank you for that.
Good. That's all I've got.
All right. And I also wanted to include, I didn't mention at all. We also had a representative from the community, from the Asian Pacific
Saw that.
Islanders, American Pacific Islanders, and we also wanted to make sure we include them as well in our conversation. So not just BIPOC, Carrboro citizens, but also other citizens that are missed out as well. So we're trying to cover the whole board. I just want to mention that.
Mm-hmm. I saw that and I appreciate that. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Susan.
I have one more. I'm sorry, Mayor. Did you have something?
Next is Eleazar, but I can
okay.
come back to you, Barbara.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep, Barbara.
Let's go ahead.
First, also add my thanks for all your work, and just huge thank you. One of my questions was around kind of, or rather than just creating a spot for BIPOC businesses, but you've already answered that. The other one I did have is, in the work and when you're communicating with community members, has the need for interpretation at all popped up, or is that anywhere, whether it's English or Spanish or any other language popped up in when you've been interacting with community?
Yes. Actually, yes. We have had one member of the community come up to us from WCHL. He had a radio station, I believe. He was, I think he was like a new resident. He just moved here, and he was trying to see if we can come on.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Rodrigo.
Yeah. So he
Rodrigo
came to
Joseph.
us. He came to us, and we had a conversation. But he wanted to know if we could, it was a barrier really, because I know a little bit of Spanish, but not a lot. He wanted to know if we could come on and kind of like talk about who we are, how we can get more Latin Americans as well, kind of involved as well. So that was we had that one conversation, but really haven't really talked to anybody else. But we're willing to open to the conversation.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So, like, I was looking through the comments, of course, I saw the AAPI
Right.
response, as well as, we've been talking about how to really include community. So I
Right.
wanted to see if that barrier had popped up.
Right. No. So a guy did come out. I'm not sure if he filled out a survey or not, but we did have a conversation, and those testimonies were only just from the survey. So it wasn't mean that the verbal conversations were also accounted for as well.
Awesome. No, thank you so
All right,
much.
yes,
And
sir.
thank you for your leadership in this.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Eleazar. Barbara.
Thank you, Mayor. And so I believe Mr. Hawkins, or maybe Anita, or maybe Town Manager White, conversation that is been being thrown around about facilitation for the group, which is actually included in the current budget. So I just wanted to mention that for folks, and that's only just going to put us on an even better track, as somebody moves in and helps us to reach our goals, hopefully, probably in the upcoming year. It wasn't a question. I just wanted to mention it. You're cool.
All right.
Don't be sweating out there, Mr. Hawkins.
Thanks, Barbara. That's really good news. I'm glad to hear that. Randy?
Yeah, I just want to take this opportunity, because I didn't say it before, but to thank Anita for her heavy lifting work for this past year, getting us ready, getting us up and running. Yeah, really. And just doing a fantastic job. So, woohoo, thank you. Thank you so much.
Anita stepping up as usual. All right. Mr. Hawkins, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for your
It's great
time.
to hear from you. Looking forward to more work in the coming year and hearing from you again a year from now,
All right,
if
yes,
not
sir.
sooner.
Thank you.
So why don't we, before you go back to your seat, we'll say that we have a motion by Randy and a second by Barbara to accept your report and to make the change that you've requested in the membership of the commission. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. The matter passes unanimously.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Have a great
All
summer.
right, Mr. Hawkins.
Right, fantastic. Mr. Manager.
The next item is a request to issue a special use permit A for new commercial building at 201 North Greensboro Street. And Marty Ruth, our Development Review Administrator, will introduce the item.
Mr. Manager, can I beg your indulgence for something just real quick here?
Yes.
We had somebody who was signed up to speak in the public comment period. I think she wanted to speak. Makita, come on in. Makita, were you here to speak about the human services funding? Okay. Can we go ahead and hear that now so that Makita doesn't have to wait for us to get all the way to the budget?
Yes.
Okay, great. Makita, please come on up and join us. Right up here. Welcome. We'll give you about 3 minutes up there. It's good to see you.
Well, blessed greetings and blessed summer to everybody.
Thank you.
Respected members of the town of Carrboro, I tell you, on behalf of the Landings Tenant Association, I'm glad to be with you, and I want to follow up on my September 14th request, where it was concluded that an investigation was to be conducted by the town manager concerning Community Home Trust and his management company at the Landings at Wynmoor. First, I want to show gratitude to the town that the efforts that was made in the spirit of tenant self-governance. However, to date, there has been little resolution, and there continues to be constant breaches of confidentiality. The Community Home Trust keeps treating me specifically like a roach on the wall. But I'm here to attest that I'm not a roach on the wall. I'm a beautiful black butterfly, a phoenix rising from the ashes, and the embodiment of the laws of Mott. There's still a great concern with the current leadership of Community Home Trust and the management staff and the way they work with the Landings residents to manage the property, creating an environment of distress, inequities, discrimination, mismanagement, mistreatment, disenfranchisement, and exclusion. Some examples include that the Community Home Trust Operation Agreement for the Landing, LLC, is not being adhered to. What does that mean? It means that the residents that was put on the board are supposed to have the same authority as anybody else on that board. And instead, we've been pushed aside and exiled. There's a fair housing issue with one person having a assigned handicap spot. That's an equity. Okay, out of 58 units, one person has an assigned parking space. And of course, they all know this, the removal of community space taken from the residents to fit the needs of one site manager. It's an injustice, inadequate lighting, and so forth. While the above impacts the well-being of all community members, new barriers to use the community space directly impacted my ability to run my food justice nonprofit, Grow to Life, which teaches gardening and nutritional skills to members throughout the extended town community. So basically, I had homeowners and residents involved through the years. So they have put a new procedure that is for Landings residents only. And in my eyes, it's the same concept. When we first moved over there, they didn't want us in the pool. It's a disparity. If you're about community, you're about bringing people together instead of dissipating them.
Just so you know, you've reached 3 minutes.
Okay, let me sum up some other stuff. Just give me a minute, because this has been an unbearable, challenging 2 years to deal with this. I've never dealt with anything like this all the years I've been on this earth. This diabolical behavior, treating it like a roach on the wall. And I'm not gonna allow it anymore. Now, I need the town to help me with this, because I'm stressed out, these people. Now, the Landings Tenant Association has been established as a tenant-run independent association, where the motto is, this is my home, quality of life, self-governance, equity, and education are my 4 walls. Now, I need the town as a significant funder of Community Home Trust, the whole Community Trust accountable for the way especially they treat residents, because it is a disparity if you're a homeowner or you're a renter. And I've never seen it this way, where residents are pitted against each other and people don't even know me, showing hatred towards me because they're in the gossip circle. So again, I am not a roach. I'm a beautiful black butterfly, a phoenix rising from the ashes. And I'm not going to allow myself to continue, or the residents that are scared to be treated. I'm going, baby. The residents that are they're scared to come up here and speak to y'all because they feel sometimes that the elected officials are going to do what they want to in the little cliques and stuff. But I'm telling you, by the laws of Mayat, that there's some injustices with the current leadership of Community Home Trust. And I need these elected officials, if you call yourself representing the people and the truth of the people, of the injustices, this is the time, and the time is now.
Thank you, Makita. Thank you for coming tonight. Mr. Manager, we, as Makita mentioned, have received an email summarizing the points that Makita made tonight, as well as some other issues she's been having with Community Home Trust. I know some of those are things that the town might be able to assist with. Others are things that the town may not be able to assist with. But can we be assured that you'll follow up with her in response to that email?
Yes, I will. Yes.
Thank you. And I think we don't any longer have a board member from the council serving on the board of the Community Home Trust because of those recent changes in statute. But maybe, Barbara, can you remind us if there was some plan by Community Home Trust to arrange like an informal advisory group of local elected officials just to keep informed about kind of the work that they're doing?
Right. Thank you, Mayor. You didn't get that email where they said they were going to
That's what I was
potentially move.
Yeah.
Well, no elected officials currently serve on the Community Home Trust board from any jurisdiction. I have thoughts about that, but I won't. But what they're proposing is having us in a non-voting capacity. I'm not sure what all that looks like. I did see that in an email. And I want to go back to the MOU. Mr. White, I think we had this conversation last week that the landings are not currently included in the current MOU. Is that correct? Brady? I think I saw that in the chart that staff put together, that the landings were not included in the current memorandum of understanding. But I understand you'll bring some information back about that. And just to remind everyone that we do give them around $75,000 out of the Affordable Housing Special Revenue Fund every year. So I think it's a conversation for us to have at some point. Thank you, Mayor.
Barbara. So, Richard, it sounds like we being sure to respond to Makita about the questions she raised about how the town could investigate some of her complaints, if that's appropriate, and then some information for council about our funding for Community Home Trust and what our role is there, and this potential informal advisory board that we may be involved in. I'm going to go to Randy, and is there other folks who definitely want to talk about this? Because we do want to move on. Randy and then Sammy.
I just want to ask Barbara a question. So at what point would you recommend that our council discuss, what the funding and that question? Because
well, I think the memorandum of understanding, I think that's a conversation because the landings aren't currently included in that memorandum of understanding.
That's right.
And then, there's the money that we give every year. And we talked about just having this larger conversation.
Yeah.
So I saw that being placed in there somewhere.
I think so.
To discuss that. I'm not sure where. I guess staff would come back with that, Mr. White. Staff.
Sammy?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that when we do have that conversation, because I think there are a couple of different things we wanted to tackle in one agenda item, that we do justice to this big question that has to do with our oversight and the amount of money that we give to the Community Home Trust, and guaranteeing and standing up and representing the tenants of the landing so that they can maximize their self-determination. So I would like for us to have a work session coming back from the summer after staff has responded to some of the questions that Makita has raised, including, I believe staff responded that in a few days, this was on June 6th, they would have some answers to some of her questions. So I would like to see the answers to those questions, but also for us to really have a conversation on what is the leverage that we have with the Community Home Trust in terms of the landings and the money that we supply.
Thanks, Sammy. So we're definitely going to be getting some information about all of these items from the manager, and I think that'll be a good foundation for us to work from in terms of having this conversation that I think Sammy and Randy and Barbara have all been talking about. not only the community home trust conversation and the landings conversation, but that larger conversation that managers already initiating with our partners about some of these other interlocal agreements that we're engaged in. Thank you, Sammy. All right. Thanks, Mr. Manager, for that detour. Now we'll return to our agenda. Marty, thank you.
Okay. Good evening again, everyone.
Marty.
So I have a fairly brief presentation. I do need to cover a few topics, though, that are kind of late-breaking news that I'll get to here as we talk. So we're here to consider a decision for the special use permit -A for a new commercial building at 201 North Greensboro Street. I do have the draft decision that we've prepared here available on screen for discussion and/or possible editing. And then I have a few points here to bring to your attention, and we'll see where the discussion goes. The first was from Councilmember Slade about possible edit to finding of fact number 6, and I have the way it reads now excerpted here. And then Sammy, I think I pulled this from the email. If I got the wording a little wrong, please speak up. But I think I just typed it straight out from your email. Just for the record, so to speak, what we were trying to do and the way we did draft it was establish a finding of fact that is what the applicant brought forward. And then under the decision, there was a blurb about widening into the verge. But Nick Herman and I, as you know from the email exchange, we discussed it by phone as well late afternoon. And he said if it's the board's pleasure to edit according to your request, that's perfectly fine too. So that's the first one, is finding of fact number 6. The second, Mayor Siles, I did catch up with your email late breaking here. And I also pulled Jeremy, their consultant, aside in the last little bit here before the meeting. We're not sure if we're working perhaps from an old set of plans or exactly what happened, but you're correct. There are some additional uses listed there that should not be. And Jeremy, I've discussed it, and he's fine with us editing this. So the suggested edit would be to not limit this to 2.110, but just to say any use not permissible. There weren't any real substantive, huge, big things there, but there was a few that aren't allowed in the B2. You're correct. So the suggested edit is to just see any use not permissible has to be removed before the construction plans are approved. Okay. The basic crux of it is a retail, restaurant, office building, and then they had some outliers there that we thought we had gotten them all except for that 2.110, but there are some still listed there. The last topic was hours of operation for trash and recycling services. I've again excerpted the portion that was in the draft decision document, and we as a staff researched what we've done for similar situations in the past and found that both Lloyd Farm and South Green happen to read exactly the same, which is, as you see on the screen, between 7:30 a.m. and 10 p.m. and not after 9 whenever possible. So that's up for discussion. If you like that and want to go with it, I went ahead and put the language in front of you. The applicant is okay with that, is my understanding, and I did speak very briefly with the neighbor who brought this to our attention just before now. So as far as I know, he's okay with it, but he may speak up if he wants to suggest some edits otherwise. And that's it.
Amy?
Thank you, Marty. I'll owe you an apology. I did not see the decision portion, which addressed what I was concerned about.
You were concerned about. Okay.
So for me, I don't really need the finding of fact, because you're right. It's what the applicant was requesting wasn't that. So I'm fine with what is proposed here. Where would you suggest including the noise, the trash portion of that? Is that
there too?
It is also there. Let me back up to the.
We'll just have to fill in the blanks that are in the draft with the times that Marty has suggested.
Right here.
What were the times again?
7:30 a.m. and 10 p.m. and not after 9 whenever possible.
Okay. So, I mean, I would like to move this with that in it, 7:30 to 10 p.m. unless there's some reason we shouldn't. And appreciate your work on this and staffs and the applicant.
Thanks, Sammy. You want a second?
I was just, I would love to hear from any neighbors that are here to speak
I
on
do
this.
just want to clarify that the public hearing is closed.
The public hearing is.
And so I want to be very careful about where we are in this process. This decision point has tried to account for what we've heard in the public hearing, I think, and staff and the attorneys have drafted a decision for us that does that, I think. But I just want us to be careful about where we are in this procedure.
Thank you for doing so. I guess I kind of invited into the discussion that the neighbor may want to speak,
so
but
too.
I did speak with him a few minutes ago, and as far as I know, he's okay, but yes.
Thanks, Marty.
That's helpful.
Eleazar, second. Okay. And I'll just say, so it's been moved by Sammy and seconded by Eleazar that we approve the decision as drafted with the addition of the times, 7:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. and 9 p.m. when possible. My earlier question that you referred to was not meant to suggest that we should change anything about what was in the decision as drafted, so I'm really sure where to go with that. I don't really need it to be amended unless you feel like it must be.
We'll figure it out, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
take care of
fine
it.
with the decision as drafted.
Okay.
As well as the amendment that Sammy offered about the times.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any further discussion of this item? All right. Been moved by Sammy and seconded by Eleazar that we approve the application, adopt the findings and conclusions and decision in attachment A, along with the hours of dumpster operation. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. The matter passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we'll carry on, Mr. Manager.
Okay. The next item is Town Manager's Contracting Authority. The purpose of this agenda item is for the Town Council to consider modifying the contracting authority for the Town Manager. And our Finance Director, Arch McAdoo, has a brief overview.
Thank you. Welcome, Arch.
Mr.
Arch.
McAdoo.
I don't have a formal presentation, but I would just like to walk you through the matter. Right now, the town manager has authority under the town code to sign contracts that are less than $5,000, and those contracts have to be for goods or services. Last summer, before you went on break, we had expected a number of contracts to be coming through during the summer while you were on break, and so you temporarily gave the town manager the authority to assign any contracts to keep the town running through September. September came, and then we reverted back to the old system. And during the past several months, we've had an opportunity to check around with our neighbors to see how they handle this matter. And one of the things that we came away with is one shoe doesn't fit all in this situation. Some people give the manager free rein. Some people have lower limits like the town, and some have a little bit higher limits. We looked at it and we decided that one of the things that we really needed to do is we needed to have a uniform policy. We should not be having one policy during the summer months and then another policy for the non-summer months. And what we've drafted here is what we think is a reasonable standard. It doesn't, it's not unlimited like some jurisdictions. In addition to goods and services, we have included some other items like equipment that may need to be purchased or construction and repair work. Right now, under the, what is it? It's the the special fund that we set up for dealing with emergency repairs and stuff, you have given the manager authority up to $150,000 there, and so we kept that in here. For your consideration this evening is an amendment to the town code to change the manager's contracting authority.
Appreciated the very clear agenda materials, Arch, as well, so thank you for that. All right. Any questions for Arch? Randy, and then Susan.
Yeah, Arch, I really appreciate that you shared this with us, and that that you and the manager are looking to have that uniformity. It makes absolute sense. It means things can be more efficient and don't have to be reevaluated. And with that, I'll move attachment A.
Susan?
Thanks, Randy. I will second the motion, and I do have just one question, Arch. I know that the town's been working hard to try to contract more with BIPOC-owned businesses, and I'm very much in favor of this approach that we have here. My question is, will we be getting some kind of report that will show who's receiving the contracts and to what extent these contracts are with BIPOC-owned businesses, so that we can kind of have a feel for how those efforts are going?
If that's what the council would like, what we can do in the finance department is put together, say maybe once a quarter, all of the contracts that the manager has signed, and we can identify whether or not they're BIPOC or not. Yeah.
I would love that if colleagues agree, just to be.
Recommend maybe work with the manager and figure out what makes sense from an operational perspective in terms of reporting that information to us. Don't want to overburden you with more paperwork to push our way, but yeah, thank you.
Is that a
Okay.
friendly amendment to the resolution that's before us? Just asking procedurally.
I mean, I think the manager hears us in terms of being interested in knowing where we're going with BIPOC-owned businesses and contracts. Do you need that to be formal direction to you, Mr. Manager?
No, I understand it, yes.
I have Eleazar and then Barbara.
Yes. Also, thank you for the very clear information. I was able to understand it perfectly. I will just echo and I guess give just my thoughts around whenever possible. Mr. Manager's my opinion that whenever possible we should be contracting with BIPOC businesses. So I don't need it to be put into the law or like into the code or anything. I would love to see more contracting with businesses of color whenever possible. That would just be what I would like to see.
Barbara?
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. White, I just want to ask you something for clarity about the disparity study. You and I have had several conversations about the use of, well, mainly MWBE and how that is. So the disparity study is going to kind of tie into the different questions that you've heard tonight. Am I correct? Is that what you're?
Yes, so what the disparity study would do is give us a legal basis to establish a formal
Oh, I
minority
see.
women-owned business. You have to have that to establish that type of program.
Okay.
With that would come some reporting requirements. That kind of we provide reports to show you exactly how we're doing in terms of our procurement activities.
And all that just kind of line up with what council members are asking for
Yes,
tonight.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Great question. All right. It's been moved by Randy, seconded by Susan, that we approve attachment A, which is the amendment to the manager's contracting authority. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Matter passes unanimously. Thank you, Arch.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, sir. It's nice to meet you in person.
Mr. Manager.
The next item is the adoption of the FY 2022-23 annual budget. And the purpose of this is to adopt the budget. And I just have a couple highlights to make before I turn over to council. Just to note that the revisions we've made since the work session includes funding in several areas. We've included the funding for the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness. We've also included the Interfaith Council, the IFC funding as well is in this budget also. And we've included the additional funding for the Affordable Housing Fund. So those changes we did make based on the comments you had at your work session. We also heard the comments about the advisory board and have put in some funding to start the stipend process. We don't quite know how much that will cost over the next year. We'll learn during the upcoming year, but there is funding to get that started in FY23. And then we've also included, we don't quite know the cost for interpretation service, but we'll be reviewing that as well and include that as part of our townwide communication plan. So we'll learn more about that as well as we move on. If we need to, we may come back to amend the budget if that's a high cost, that we need some additional funds for that area. Those are the main changes that we made since your work session last week. As you know, the budget has lots of moving parts to it in terms of the budget ordinance, our salary and wage ordinances here, and there are a couple of items here, so staff is available to answer questions you might have.
Thanks, Richard. So, council members, as you know from your agenda materials, the process of adopting the budget every year is a number of attachments, and we have 8 of them this year that are part of adopting the annual budget. One is the budget ordinance. The next is the position classification and pay plan. Next is the salary and wage adjustment resolution. Next is the town attorney's contract, capital projects ordinance for vehicle purchases, reimbursement resolution for vehicle purchases, a new fee schedule, medical insurance plan, and the dental insurance plan. Those all make up our decision item around the annual budget. Is there either a question for Richard or a motion? Eleazar and then Barbara.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Manager, for the conversation we had about the budget and you helping me walk through this intense document. Very much appreciate that. The only thing that I would ask is that as we move forward and as I'm looking at your responses around the interpretation, if need arise, I would prefer those be professional interpreters rather than staff members providing that service. I don't know if that is something you can pull from something else or whatever, but I really do not want to see or would prefer not to see staff members who are not trained professionally to be interpreters to be serving in that role. I cannot express enough how much that just is not okay with me. And aside from that, I'll move whatever I need to move, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, if you want to move attachments A through H.
There we go. I'll move attachments A through
Can
H.
you do attachment A separately, please? Just
We can divide that, sure. Well, why don't we start over here? You want to move attachment A, Eleazar?
There we go. I'll move
Barbara, is that a second?
Yeah, I'll second it. I have one small question for Mr. White. Under attachment B, where you say establish a grants manager position at salary grade 17, was that the one we talked about potentially maybe using ARPA funding for the next couple of years? Is that what the plan is, or are we just going to not use the ARPA funding for that? That was just clarification.
Yes, that's what the plan is for at least the next 2 years, and then over time we could probably find other funding sources to continue that position beyond ARPA.
Okay, and then the next question for the vehicle purchases under attachment E. So the departments that I see that are being authorized for purchase is fire, public works, and Rex and Park, and that's it for this year.
Yes, we do have a vehicle replacement schedule, and that meets the need for that schedule.
Okay, cool.
This does.
And congratulations, Mr. White. You about to get, your budget. I think you've been doing an amazing job. And I appreciate you bringing forth the recommended budget, kind of tightening it up around the edges according to council direction. And congratulations. I'm about to be there.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, any further discussion of the motion to approve attachment A? Sammy?
Yeah, well, I want to express gratitude to staff and the manager. I know there's a lot of work. There's a lot of needs in our town. And I appreciate, Eleazar, you're separating this attachment A from the rest. And the reason why I requested that is we are currently in the midst of a mass extinction event as represented by climate change, as we hear every day and every year, the worsening of our climate and the ways that, we just can't imagine what's going to happen. And we have also had a request to formally look at our budget, tying it to a 10-year annual climate emergency budget. And I know staff's been working hard and try to meet what that resolution speaks to. But I really feel like we're getting there, but we're getting there for next budget in terms of what that resolution requests. We had only about a week to consider the formatting of that, much less the content. And the content was significant as the updated estimate on cost to deal with climate change is about $43 million compared to what used to be $200 million. So there's a $160 million difference, which just points to kind of the need to have a more meaningful process through which to assess and look at what these costs represent. If we can fluctuate so radically between what we estimate the cost to be, I don't have confidence in us really, doing what our part in addressing the climate emergency. So I just want to, express this because it's so significant for me that it outweighs what I recognize to be all of staff's good work. And so it's not a comment on your work, Mr. Manager, or staff's. It's more a comment on the emergency that we find ourselves in terms of climate change, that I won't be supporting attachment A tonight.
Thank you, Sammy. Any further comment on this motion? Danny?
Yes, and I'll be brief, but I did just want to say for Mr. Manager and the staff that are present, and to enter into the public record, one of the things that I'm really excited about this budget is the investment that it represents in our town staff. We have a town staff that is tasked with creating what we believe in this town to be the most progressive community in the South, often from scratch, and they are working overtime to meet our requests. And I have been so impressed with the way that this budget, with our new manager and a new clerk and a new mayor in this time of transition for our town, has really taken a global and I think proactive view of staffing our town in a way that will allow us to really make good on what you often hear from behind the stays. And so I just wanted to extend a note of appreciation to Mr. White in particular, but to all of our staff for putting forward a budget that I think, as we look at what we really need to build with our town, we need a town staff that can do these big things that we're asking. And so we have these 6.5 new positions, I believe. I may be incorrect about the exact number there, but a very thoughtful build out of our town staff that I really want our residents to know is a thoughtful and proactive step toward building the machine that we need to build to make good on what we're doing here. And so we have all these other things which have fluctuated and which we've tweaked in these numbers, but what we haven't talked about a ton is the extent to which we really do need to be building this town staff, to the extent that our town is reflected in our staff. We want to have the best one, and we have the best people that I think we can working, and they need a lot more resources. And I'm just very impressed, and I'm very heartened, and I think this is an exciting time. I think it's an exciting budget for that reality, for the fact that we're going to be able to make good on a lot more of what we're asking from our staff. That's just something I wanted to underscore before we move on. So just a note of appreciation and anticipation, excitement.
What's up?
Thank you, Danny. All right, there is a motion. Are we having more discussion? Okay, Susan.
I just wanted to add, lift up what Danny said here in terms of the celebrating the employees. So I thank you too, Mr. Manager, for your first budget. And I think that there's so many great things in here. But what Danny said stands out to me as well, that at a time where we're rolling out our comprehensive plan, I think we're going to really have the staffing that we need to be able to implement a very ambitious plan in a much more timely way. I also wanted to really appreciate the continued commitment to a housing wage for the full-time employees and the living wage for the part-time employees. I wanted to also mention that a time when the pandemic has really shine the spotlight on the systemic racial injustices in this country, that we will be creating a new race and equity officer, a new race and equity manager positions, and also I really appreciate this disparity study that I think will help shine the light on some things that need changing there as well. In terms of the housing, I really appreciate the fact that we have found this additional funding for IFC and also for the Partnership to End Homelessness. And I'm encouraged by conversations that we'll be looking for ways to sustain that additional funding. And I just also wanted to mention, I know there's been a lot of conversation about trying to engage community members more in local government, and I really appreciate the additional hours provided in the communication and engagement department. I appreciate the stipends for advisory board members that I hope will help encourage more participation, and then I really appreciate Eleazar's suggestion to go ahead and professionalize the translation services. So I too just wanted to say thank you for what is a really great budget as we head into some very exciting times.
Thank you, Susan. All right. Eleazar, different attachment. Let's dispense with this motion first. There's a motion by Eleazar, a second by Barbara to approve attachment A, which is the annual budget ordinance. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Matter passes unanimously, 6 votes to 1 with Alderman. Councilmember Slade voting no. Thank you, Sam.
Flashback.
Yes. Okay, we have remaining attachments B through H. Eleazar?
Yes. So before I move all of them again,
That's miscellaneous fees.
yes. So I'm looking at the kind of the fee schedule, and one thing that popped up to me on page 114 is an exemption to fees for tennis or pickleball participants, and I'm just curious as to why is there that just one exemption for that particular part, and then there's other games, or I guess 114. What was the thinking around that? Is there like some specific reason the town is okay or kind of highlighting pickleball or tennis over other sports or games in the town?
Yes, was you? Yes.
Come on up, Anita.
As a staff through the pandemic, we realized that was a particular section that was very busy, very popular. And we also had a lot of businesses, small business owners that wanted to use the space. So that was in an effort to try to make sure that we can kind of balance pickleball versus tennis and allowing that opportunity. So we're doing it, during the day. And so it's worked. It worked through the pandemic. We went through a couple of iterations, but that is working for us, and we just wanted to make it permanent, if at all possible.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
That works. Thank you for the explanation. I just was looking at it and I was like, this is particular to me that there's one exemption, but I'm glad that there's a reason and rationale behind it. Thank you.
And a lot of our facilities, they don't have separate costs.
Mm-hmm.
So just wanted to mention that as well. Our pavilions are pretty much, pavilions in the courts were the ones that have a fee. And so we just felt that would be easier for the community. Very, very popular. So, and then the pavilions, of course, we did modify some of the costs through the pandemic. So we were just kind of putting that back on course in terms of, some revenue we can make and some we need to, look at the community and what we can do for a lot of the small businesses.
Of course. Thank you so much for that. So,
Thank you, Anita.
with that, I'll move the approval of the rest of the attachments.
For a second
Second.
by Randy. Is there any further discussion? Susan?
I had one question for Anita, but maybe you don't need. Maybe you can just nod your head. On the BIM Street, there was a $25 rental for BIM Street, and does that mean it's open for nonprofits and they would pay a $25 fee to use the? Great. That's all I need. Great, thank you.
Thanks, Susan. All right, motion by Eleazar, second by Randy, that we approve attachments B through H, which I believe are all of the remaining attachments. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Matter passes unanimously. All right. Thank you, Mr. Manager. You got some well-deserved thanks, and appreciate you recognizing this is your first budget for the town as
I
our
see
new
you
manager.
smiling
so-
over there. I'm trying to hide it. Yeah, let's see all of it.
Thank you all very much for your support. Thank you.
Manager.
Much appreciated.
Very well done.
I said, woo-hoo. Summer recess, too.
We'll continue to the next item, please.
Right, the last item is the appointments to the Orange Water and Sewer Authority, OWASA Board of Directors. And the purchase item is to make appointments to both town seats on the OWASA Board of Directors.
Thank you. So, council members, as you know, we have 2 seats on the OWASA Board of Directors. There are 5 applications in our agenda packet. So I'm assuming that if there's no objection, we'll consider those 5 people to be nominated for these 2 seats. I can also open the floor to other nominations if there are any. Not seeing any. We will be considering Catherine Baer, Joe Brown, Patrick Gale, Melody Kramer, and Elmira Mangum as the 5 nominees.
Can I, quick comment?
Yes, please.
Before we vote.
Yeah.
And so, certainly one thing that I looked at was the demographic information, as I'm sure all of you have. And thank you, Mayor. And, we certainly have a whole lot more males than we do females. We're getting ready to lose Yinka Ayankoya. That will leave, I believe, just Jody Elmer. So I did want to kind of raise that up.
Thanks for reminding us of that, and I appreciated the clerk including that demographic matrix as in the agenda packet as well, so that was very helpful. We will cast our votes using ballots, which Mary has just provided to us. Please remember that you must cast 2 votes, as there are 2 positions.
One more.
Eleazar?
Yes, sorry, I'm just following up on council members Romaine's question via email about folks serving on 2 different boards. I wasn't able to read through that response. Just want to make
So
sure.
the clerk and I did have a conversation about this. One issue is that OWASA board is not an advisory board. It's an independent authority, and we didn't, in reading the policy, feel like it really strictly applied in this case. And so he felt comfortable with considering a sitting advisory board member for this position. There's also that in our policy does allow considerations of diversity for diversifying the applicant pool to consider applicants who are people of color. So those were 2 reasons he felt comfortable putting forward these 5 names.
Good deal. Thank you so much.
You have ballots before you with the 5 nominees' names. Please, as I said, you must vote for 2 nominees, and be sure to put your name on the ballot. And the clerk will collect our ballots.
Oh, do I have to fold it? Sorry.
Down there, maybe?
Would you pass them down to me, and I'll hand them up.
Okay, y'all, it's 8:45. What's up? What's up?
I really thought we were going here till midnight.
Thanks, Mary.
Oh.
You haven't heard my other matters by council members.
Oh, we're not doing other matters tonight.
I got
It's
3
on
hours
here.
and 15 minutes just for
It's on here. Is it on here?
This is why you didn't get papaya. Just saying.
I've got a whole chapter of Moby. I gotta.
Lucky you.
I will pull a Barbara and walk out. Just saying.
Hey,
Filibuster.
don't start that again.
So Mary's going to count up our votes there, and will let us know who the top 2 candidates are, assuming there are top 2. And if there aren't, we'll figure that out.
Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
The top vote getter with 7 votes was Elmira Mangum. And the next after that was Melody Kramer, and she received 4 votes.
And so there were no ties in those top 2. All right. And 4 is a majority of council members, so I feel like we don't need to do anything different there. So we will make
Move
these
those.
appointments by motion. Sammy has moved appointment of Elmira
Yep.
Mangum and Melody Kramer to the OWASA Board of Directors, seconded by Eleazar. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. The matter passes unanimously. Mary, I assume that you and Wesley will be getting in touch with our new OWASA Board of Directors members to let them know that they have a new job on behalf of the town. Thank you. All right. Anything else for us, Mr. Manager?
No, that's all I have.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Danny said he had a matter about a board.
No, I
I think his matter is to move that we adjourn.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna second that.
And hurry up.
Is there a second? Moved by Danny, seconded by Susan, that we adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The matter passes unanimously. Happy summer, everyone.